Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the event, How Games Meet Life. I'm Jian Li, Project Manager at the Science and Technology Office of the Embassy of Switzerland in Seoul. Our team belongs to SwissNext, the network that includes more than 26 offices in innovative locations all around the globe, with the mission of connecting the dots in higher education, research, and innovation between Switzerland and the world. This event is the first of the series SciTech Concert, a quarterly appointment where general audience has the opportunity to come closer to the scientific community by virtually gathering around actual and highly attractive subjects, or familiar subjects, I would say. Like in an orchestra where many different instruments come together to create one symphony, STO Seoul aims to bring together diverse voices contributing to the same discussion theme. Today's subject is how gaming influences modern culture and society, aiming to disclose broader ways than the commonly envisioned ones. This theme will be addressed in a fully horizontal approach, cross borders and cross disciplines, and will be moderated by Mark Bodmer. Mark was born 57 years ago into a very culturally interested family that enjoyed music, books, films, and comics. He now works as a freelance journalist and has been covering movies, and video games for more than 25 years in Switzerland's leading publications and newspapers. He teaches media literacy at universities, schools, and other venues as well. Bodmer is the co-author of a teacher's guide to video games and teaching materials about eSports as well. He also works as an independent consultant on video games for the Swiss Cultural Foundation, Pro Helvetia. Our team believes that the audience contributes to the melody of this concert together with the experts as well. For this reason, 2 questions with multiple choice answers will soon be shared right now on your screen, and all participants are invited to pick their very favorite option. Please check the poll questions that popped up on your screen and answer the poll question. The experts that we have, our experts, will later share their opinions on the same topics as well. Additionally, please feel free to write anytime your questions in the Q&A section, and please keep in mind to use the chat function just for the technical issue. On behalf of the STO team, I wish the speakers and audience a very fruitful exchange. And please, Mark, the virtual stage is now yours to direct the orchestra.
Thank you, Jian Li. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us in this webinar about how games meet life and their impact on social well-being. I'm very honored to be hosting this session and having the opportunity to be listening and talking to some very bright people in the field of video game research and development. We will hear about cultural differences in the reception of computer games, about how technologies will change the way that videos will impact our society, but also about their potential in different fields of life. We will now show you short videos, portraits of our participants. So I'll just let you know on a very briefly way who we're gonna see. So first of all, there is Professor Robert Sumner. He's the Director of Research and Development at the Walt Disney Studios and an adjunct professor at ETH Zürich, the Technical University of Switzerland. At Disney, he leads research in animation and games. His group strives to bypass technical barriers in animation and game production pipelines. At ETH, Professor Sumner teaches a course called Game Programming Laboratory, in which students from ETH and the Zurich University of Arts collaborate in small teams. In 2015, he funded the ETH Game Technology Center. He will be followed by Jung Jim Do, who is an invited professor at the Graduate School of Culture Technology at Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology and the director of Games and Life Lab. She has been working on how to apply games to real-world problem solving And as a cyber psychologist, she looks at the sociocultural perspective. Her current research interests are focused on analyzing players' experiences and behavioral changes. Personally, something I'm very interested in too. After the break, where we will discuss the poll uh, questions, Annalisa Martin Niedecken uh, will will um, will crap. This is not true. We will have all the videos in one after the other. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Annalisa Niedecken is the director of the Institute for Design Research and senior researcher at the Zurich University of Arts. She has a background in sports and science and expertise in game research and is specialized in the design and evaluation of serious and applied games for health, esports, fitness, and rehabilitation. I got to know her as the founder and CEO of Sphery, a Zurich-based fitness gaming startup that has a product called ExerCube, a installation where athletes get tracked in a similar way to Microsoft's Kinect, and will interact with a fitness game setting, but it's way more sophisticated. And the last portrait will be, and but not the least, is Lauren Guardia. She's a localization specialist with over 8 years of experience, currently working at NC Soft's Research and Development Center, located in Panzhou. I hope I got that right, in the south of Seoul. A native Canadian, she also spent 11 years living and working in Zurich. She then discovered her interest in video game localization as she was working for Brave Wave Productions, a independent Tokyo-based video game record label. She relocated to Korea in 2018 and got a position with NCSoft, one of Korea's largest game companies, particularly known for its Lineage, Blade and Soul, and Guild Wars series. So, after the 4 video portraits, we'll jump right into the first presentations by Professor Robert Sumner and Professor Jung-Jim Do. And so, let's roll.
My name is Bob Sumner. I studied computer science in the United States with a special focus on computer graphics and animation. And I've always been fascinated by the interplay between technology and art. I moved to Switzerland in 2005, and I'm now a professor at ETH Zürich, where I lead the ETH Game Technology Center. And in this role, I really deeply believe that games and the technology that makes games so magical has a fundamental role to play and can be very impactful for science and education. In this space, I see augmented reality as an especially important technology and one that can really alter the way we perceive the world around us. So to this end, together with my team at the Game Technology Center, we're exploring new technologies in augmented reality. For example, how we can use augmented reality to enhance creativity and focus attention on real-world creative activities, or even use augmented reality to bring digital characters to life, to tell us exciting stories.
My name is Young-Im Do. I'm an invited professor in the Graduate School of Cultural Technology at KAIST, and I'm the director of Games and Life Lab. As a cyber psychologist with a sociocultural perspective, my research interests are focused on analyzing players' experiences and behavioral changes. We usually think of games as an entertainment media that provide fun and flow experiences. However, I have explored that gaming experience can have various meanings and values reflecting everyday life. In my presentation, I will share a series of case studies that analyze how serious life issues can be linked to game experiences, such as morality, bereavement, and reminiscence. Through these research, I will illustrate the expansion of the meanings and values of a game experience in our society. In addition, in the future, I expected that The game will be a driving force that leads our lives.
Hi, my name is Anna-Martin Niedecken and I'm a passionate sports scientist working in the field of game research and game design for about 10 years now. In my academic work at the Zurich University of the Arts, I mainly focus on exploring innovative technologies and motivation designs with different target audiences, mainly in the field of serious and applied games for health. But I'm also very interested in transferring all the knowledge from the lab into the field. And that's what I'm actually doing together with my colleagues from our startup company Sphery, where we use movement-based games to motivate people to take up a physically active and healthy lifestyle. So I strongly believe in the power of games and game technologies when it comes to social well-being. And I'm very much looking forward to the panel.
Hi there, my name is Lauren Guardia, and I'm currently working as a localization specialist at NCSoft, which is one of the largest Korean game companies. You might know some of our larger IPs like Lineage and Blade and Soul, and especially if you're from the West, you probably heard of Guild Wars. So yeah, I'm working in localization, and I have been working in localization for around 7 years. Most of my adult life, which I also spent in Switzerland, I was also working in localization. And so when I was asked to present for this event, I was really excited actually, because I thought that I can hopefully provide my global perspective, because at its core, localization is actually globalization. We're preparing the game for a global audience. We want to bridge across cultures. We try to bridge across languages as well. And I think that that can mesh well with the topic of how games meet life and how games can affect social well-being. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to presenting for you all and sharing my opinion with you all. And I really look forward to hearing from the other presenters as well. Happy to meet everyone, and I really hope that you'll tune in, and yeah, hopefully see you soon. Bye-bye.
So I can take over the stage next. I'm Robert Sumner, happy to share my presentation. So let me just get started here. And get Keynote going. Super. So yeah, I'm here representing ETH Zürich. ETH is one of the top technical universities in the world. My role, as Mark kindly introduced, is I established the ETH Game Technology Center about 5 years ago. Now you might ask, what are games doing at ETH? If you look at the mission statement of ETH, the mission of ETH is to educate the next generation of creative thinkers and prepare them to tackle the world's biggest problems. And I really firmly believe that games can play a strong role in both of these activities. Games are this amazing combination of creativity and technology, and they really have this unique ability, this unique opportunity to impact science and education. And then, well, most importantly, when you think about games, you think, well, games are fun. And what I really think is that fun is going to be a core part of our future. What does this mean? Well, fun is something that connects to our evolutionary development. You know, we do so many things in our life because it's fun. It's really part of our core nature as human beings. And a game is like a factory of fun. So if we can understand games, we can understand the technology and the ingredients that go into making these factories of fun, then we can harness that power and direct it as this force for good. So that's really the core motivation behind my work and the work of my team at the Game Technology Center. I want to show you some examples from our work, but I think throughout the presentations, you'll see several examples of this concept from all of the speakers. I want to first start in education. I teach a course at ETH called the Game Programming Lab. This is a course where students work in small teams in the computer science department to develop a novel game basically from scratch. This video shows just some snippets of games that the students have developed over the years. But what's really interesting is that the students, when I ask them, why do you take the course? They take the course because they want to make a game. They're super excited about making a game. But actually, there's this deep educational component, this pedagogical aspect of the game, where students apply in the course all of the things they've learned throughout the computer science program at ETH. And by applying it, they internalize those concepts and they really learn them better. And this is part of the psychology of education. We published a paper delving deeper into the subject. But to me, it's very interesting because it's almost like a trick. They spend so much time, they're so excited and so engaged in working on their game that they don't even realize that, in fact, what it's about is learning. It's about education. To give us sort of insight, this is just one game I wanted to highlight about the process. It's this iterative process where you first design something, you test it, and then you iterate. This is an image of a game in the very first weeks of the course where they built a physical prototype using paper and cardboard. And here's an example, a video of the game when it was finished in the course, the final presentation. It was this collaborative multiplayer game where you work together with your teammates to build the track in front of a train that's moving forward. The game is called Unrailed. It's really interesting because the students continued working on the game even after the course was finished and eventually launched it on Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, so basically every platform. So it's a great success story for kind of the magic of computer science and the magic of games. We also use it to motivate young people to study computer science. So we show them like, hey, come to ETH, you can make games like this. That's very cool. But we've even taken it a step forward, a step further. So one research project in our lab is called the Game Creator. And you see some child playing with their parents. This is actually an app that allows a child to create and program a novel video game from scratch, really from scratch. And what's interesting is that it follows the same principles of this course we teach at ETH. So the same idea of designing, programming, testing, and iterating, all of those concepts are mirrored in this app for children. But rather than building a game where you actually code, we have a programming language that's appropriate for children that uses visual elements so they can program. And this video shows just some snippets from the interface. We also have here some example games that real children have made. This even inspired a spin-off company, so you can find the kind of commercial version of this game called Candly online, which is really a great thing because it's something we could provide over the past months when we've all been stuck at home. No one's been too excited about that. One thing that's really been missing in this whole past year of COVID is travel. So seeing this airplane might seem a little foreign and make you think back to the olden times. If you think, why do people travel? You know, travel is about adventure. You travel to seek adventure in foreign lands. And in the Game Technology Center, we thought, what could we do in this situation? What if we bring the adventure to our own backyard? And one of our projects really focuses on that. We're using augmented reality to transform the places we live, our yards, our cities, into exciting adventures. And I want to show you one game. It's called Gnome Trader, where players move throughout the city to trade seeds with these virtual gnomes that are embedded in the real world using augmented reality, which you see on your smartphone's camera. You trade seeds, you create plants to grow trees. So it has a very positive message about the environment as well. This video shows actually a version of the app that we tested in Bristol in the United Kingdom to get early feedback about how players found it. And what's interesting is it's really focused on physical movement in the real world to engage in the game elements and with other players in this kind of fun contest to collect the seeds and plant the most trees. Now, to me, this was a fantastic use of augmented reality and a way to explore this positive impact we can make by embedding information, so digital content in the real world. And the last project I want to highlight is using the same idea, augmented reality, in a different context. It's a little bit more adult, but also builds this bridge between children and adults. We call it behind the art, but it's really using augmented reality to bring the story of art to life. And it's been ongoing for a few years. I want to show first a video that was one of the earlier prototypes we produced, where we created an app and then developed several different prototype concepts to take artwork that you might encounter in an exhibition and really visualize it in a new way. So in this case, this horse statue actually transformed into a digital animated character that then can move around and tell the kind of story of its history. Or here we're visualizing the restoration process that an artwork has undergone over the years. We can also embed additional information. Here, the artwork, there's an audio clip about the subject of this painting, Clara Serena, by Rubens. So it was really an experiment. It's funded by the LGT Bank. That's actually was the Prince of Liechtenstein giving his some comments about it. But it was really a test and a successful one because we got a lot of positive feedback about the engagement that the app delivered and the way it kind of brought this playfulness and kind of fun way to interact and experience with the artwork. This was very positive, as I said, and it motivated us to continue further. And the last thing I want to show is a video. It's an exhibition at the ETH Graphische Sammlung that is just concluding now, but it's an app we launched to the public. It was live for the entire run of the exhibition, and it's the same concept in a more polished way, but it's really a way to connect the history and the exciting kind of concepts of this very old pieces of art and bring it to life in a modern way using technology. And for me, it's very exciting because it shows that this idea of augmented reality and taking kind of the concept and ingredients of games and injecting it into the world around us, into our vision, kind of the way we see the world, is very powerful. And I think there's a huge potential there. So lastly, before I conclude, I just want to give a big thank you to the entire team at the Game Technology Center. I'm really privileged to have the chance to work with this great group of people. And thank you also for the organizers and giving me the chance to speak here today. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Young-im Do. Mark already introduced me as a psychologist, have interested in the analyzing player experience and the behavioral change. Today, I will share a series of case studies conducted with my students. This of Mine, Spiritfarer, and Long Journey of Life. Although these 3 commercial games were created by small companies or indie developers, they provide deep insight into what life is and how we should live with. This War of Mine is a game about the survival of civilians during a war. The goal of this game is to keep alive your own group of survivors until end of the war. In this game, the players must survive and care the characters' hunger, physical and mental health. There are also other characters that players can attack, steal, trade, or help. During the play, players confront moral dilemma situation, requesting judge what is good choice or not for their in-group characters and out-group characters. Through these interactions, players can recognize their moral criteria and aware how they play. In addition, they can understand themselves, how they behave in real life. We can see the 2 case comparison. It's on the left. Review 18 said life is not just about the surviving and choose to help other characters. On the contrary, in the review 31, in order to maximize ability to survive, players can only save characters that have enough ability and abandon rest of them. What we found that players have various judgmental criteria according to how much they concern the characters of the game. And in addition, we also found that the players can reflect on themselves in real life through their playing behavior. Player B said that in games, she wants to gain a sense of accomplishment and good evaluation through game. She actually has felt that herself in reality cannot be a well-behaved person like a game character. However, through the game experience, she realizes that not only in game, but also in real life, she desires good evaluation. Through this of mine, we found that the players have various moral judgment criteria, and game can give an opportunity for players to understand their moral selves and while playing. The next topic we studied was how players cope with real-life loss of beloved one through commercial video games. Specifically, we chose the game Spiritfarer because it directly deals with the topic of death. Players manage a ship, befriend the lost spirit of the deceased, accompany them until they are ready to pass on the afterworld. By interviewing 6 bereaved players from 4 different countries, we found that what they experienced resembled the existing dual process model of bereavement. Players repeatedly experience loss orientation state and restoration orientation state. In their game journey, while they met and took care of spirit characters, they found several resemblances between the characters and the one they lost. But they eventually had to send them away like they lost their loved ones. Then they had to come back to the ship and continue their everyday life. Playing the game made them go back and forth between these 2 states, which made them revisit or even reappraise their losses. The first, being in a loss-oriented state, made players revisit and reinterpret their losses. Player 2 connected Alice, the hedgehog spirit, with his grandmother because both suffered from the dementia. Sending away Alice actually made him think that his grandmother's death could mean that she could finally be free from the weakening body and could rest. From this, he was able to process the loss in a more positive way. Second, players found a new need to move on from the game. They realized that they cannot hang on to their losses forever. To quote participant, those who are left has to continue their life. Player 3 said that from sending away and coming back to real life, she was reminded that need to move on. And no matter who you lose, there will be people in your life who can help you cope with the empty space. Finally, players had to repeat befriending and sending away spirit they built attachment. This made some players expand their thought about their own losses to thought about people who would have to cope with the participant's own death. In case of player 5, playing the game led to different interpretation of his loss and expanded to thought about people around him after his own death. From this, we were able to explore the new potential of a video game as a space where players can project their life, go through the complex emotions, and be engaged and actively cope with the personal loss. The last case study is about intergenerational life review using games. This is a mobile game titled Long Journey of Life, which was developed by Li Yang in Pink's studio. It is an interactive story game that the player becomes a small boat and sails the human life course from birth to death while across the ocean. It has very simple interaction, so anybody can play, even very young children and older adults. We organized an intergenerational play activity which combined live review and co-playing this game. We invited older adults aged from 50 to 85 and undergraduate students. Then one older adult and one young partner were coupled and played this game together and talked about the older adult's life history. We recorded their conversation during the activity and analyzed what kind of themes were appeared. Then we found 7 communication themes. Themes appeared from all the others were reminiscence, future and death preparation, and life advice. And appreciation, evaluation, and interpretation of the game, small talks, were appeared from the both groups, and young partner explained the game control method. This scene was that the player boat met a lover boat, and there was a rainbow behind them. In this scene, 2 ladies, the young participant and older participant, talk about how to choose the right husband. The older adult gave an advice from her personal experience. Appearance is not important, but personality is more important. In the next scene, it's charge lane and container boxes block the way ahead. The older adult made her own interpretation connecting to the game and her life. There are rainy days, cloudy days, and sunny days. After all, I think there are more good days, and I am comfortable and happy now because I lived so hard. Playing this game together and talking about the life course could provide opportunity to organize past experiences, rediscover the meaning of life, and prepare for the future life and eventual death. We found the games can create a comfortable and enjoyable atmosphere between 2 generations. In addition, we found that possibility of having a balance of conversation. Young people can teach older adults about game playing method, and all the adults can provide life advice from personal experience. An analysis of a 3-game case revealed the following key insight. Through game, players were able to recognize their moral standard or moral criteria and reflect upon their real-life losses and reappraise them or communicate better with the other generation while reminiscing about their life. In all ways, gameplay experiences were deeply connected to our lives. Games are providing time and space for players to reflect on themselves and construct meaningful experiences. Game in the past reflected the reality, but the reality in the future will reflect the games. Maybe future games would ignite our imagination and lead our lives. Thank you for listening. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
So we're back and we're actually waiting for the poll results to come in. So here we are. Okay. Hoo-ha. Relieving stress. And what else? Okay. And yep. Cool. So everybody, I guess everybody's seen these results. So yeah, who wants to start? Because yeah, we'll look at these different results, which are kind of interesting.
I can just maybe say I voted for increased creativity because one of our projects is called augmented creativity, and we use augmented reality to increase creative play. But I'm a little biased. Certainly, I see the point of relieving stress as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I would say there is a certain bias there, of course, yes. And but judging from what happened during the last couple of months during the pandemic, what do you think is I guess, do you think that the results would have been different in say, let's say, everyday life like we knew it before the pandemic?
I would think no, not necessarily.
No,
because
not necessarily.
many people, yeah, I think many people are really consuming games to relieve from stress, actually, even before the times, but it might have increased a little. Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay. And John Jim, this is really into your field of work. So what do you think? Is it
Mm-hmm.
do you think the effect would have been so clear or
So maybe it's a more participant is voting about the relieving stress because it's during the pandemic situation, there is emotional distress and isolation will be increased, and the burden for the how can we deal with the work or is a school activities or the loss of the relationship maybe cause the stress. So we can lead to the emotional regulation and the stress coping strategy will be made. Maybe game is the one of the stress management process to supporting the how can we relieve about the daily stress and escape from the burden for the daily comfort. So maybe is many participants feel about that. And the active social interaction is a little bit a small number of agree because I expected that that will be a more amount of people agree about that. However, in the relieving stress will be a more important role of this period, I think so. So I agree about the participant opinion.
But I can also believe that there is probably an overlap, I would say, with being socially active or have an interaction with your group that will also then kind of be part of stress relief due to the interaction with other people. So because you then kind of lower your feeling of being isolated, being alone. So I think that there's a certain overlap there. What I personally find a bit disappointing is the answer to the second poll question that we have should gaming preferences and achievements be part of the CV? I would have expected it to be kind of reversed. And yeah, do you have an idea why we have this and not the other way around?
I think maybe if you're not someone who is like very into games or who considers themselves a gamer, it can be difficult to maybe understand how you could translate skills that you can gain from gaming and playing games, how you can apply those into a real life job, so to say. And I mean, I guess it would depend on what field you're trying to work in. Of course, at my company, when we give interviews, we ask people, what kind of games do you play? What are you good at? What's your rank in Overwatch, or what's your rank in League of Legends? Those are all things that come up during the interview. So of course, in a gaming industry, or maybe in a tech company, that might be something that's a little bit more relevant. But I feel like maybe people who work in more less technology-based fields or more traditional fields, they might think that, oh, well, that's silly, or it's a waste of time playing games. It doesn't build any of your skills. Maybe that's why the results came out that way.
That's a very valid point, and we're working on this to kind of change this, because personally I believe that the skills go way beyond just tech companies and gaming companies. But yeah.
I think this is also something where game research can help a lot to really identify exactly those skills which are kind of related to playing several kind of games. And yeah, we can already find a lot of literature, but of course, all of these findings needs to find their way into society to really have a broader understanding of the whole topic. Yeah, so I agree with what Lauren already said. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you, of course. And so I have to be the master of disaster here and have to make sure that we're stay in time. And so we will proceed with your presentation, Annalisa. So the stage is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark.
And Lauren, you're up right after Annalisa.
Okay, so also hi from my side. I decided to talk a little bit about Exergames today. And like you already heard in the short introduction round, this is mainly motivated by the fact that I have kind of two hats. The one is I'm trained as a sports scientist, so I'm very passionate when it comes to understanding movement concepts and all the stuff which is kind of related with our body moving and sending. But I'm also working in the field of game research. And so it was more or less quite obvious that at one point of time, both fields needed to come together. And my main motivation was always, and look onto the stats. So we do have a world population which counts around 7.8 billion people. And we know that 2.6 of them are gamers, while only 1.5 are sufficiently physically active, which means that there is a certain potential in games and gaming when it comes to motivating people to take up a physically active and healthy lifestyle. So this was more or less always my greatest motivation. And I'm obviously not the first one who had this idea. So the gaming market already recognized this huge potential about 10 years ago. So you might see some examples which you already maybe also tested yourself from the Nintendo Wii, Sony Move, Microsoft Kinect. All of those technologies brought a physically active setting into our living rooms through the medium of games. And a couple of years later, we can also find the opposite side getting onto this train. So we can find the fitness sector who also recognize the huge potential. And there we do have several kind of different, very efficient training concepts, which are then extended with immersive technologies, gamified elements, or even VR, which especially through the last couple of months had a big boost. But there's also something missing. And talking to you as a researcher, I would say we can now find, on the one hand, very efficient and very evidence-based training concepts, which sometimes still lag a little bit when it comes to combining them with a meaningful game design. Or on the other side, we can find very attractive game designs, which might lag a little bit when it comes to combining them with a very evidence-based training concept. So it's all about finding something in the middle, and this is namely attractive and effective exergames. And this is also where my research started back in the days. And this is only one example, which I'd like to show you here. So I was very much interested into understanding how such attractive and effective fitness games need to be designed and how they really impact the feelings, the training experience of different target audiences. And this is an example we conducted at Zurich University of the Arts together with children, where we co-designed a fitness game setting with different controller technologies and then did several studies to really find out effective-wise what it really makes with their physiological parameters on the one hand, and also studied their motivational patterns, for instance, or so their user experience and the flow experience while using those games. And this prototype actually led us to exhibiting it numerous times. And every time we were asked by many, many parents who were not only watching their children play the game, but using it themselves as well, where can I buy it? And we always needed to say, sorry, it's just a research prototype, so it's not for sale. But to take it one step further, and one day we then said, okay, we are an interdisciplinary team. We are sports scientists, we are game designers, let's do it, let's do the next step. And there we decided to found our spin-off company, Sphery, and then started with the development of the ExerCube, which I'd like to show you in a bit more detail now.
Where body and mind are totally balanced, you experience the dual flow. Enter the immersive world of the ExerCube. Resulting from a research-based collaboration of sports scientists and game designers, the ExerCube combines the best of fitness and gaming. With its holistic training approach, the playful workout increases your physical and cognitive skills. To maximize your fitness results, it adapts to your performance while you enjoy the most engaging and motivating experience. Beat your own high score or challenge your friends. Welcome to the playful future of fitness training. Go with the dual flow.
Yes.
Where body and mind.
Sorry. So let's take a little closer look into what happens actually in the ExerCube. So we took all the knowledge we gained from the research we did before and put it into the design of this fitness game. So here you see Simone, how she performs a functional workout in the cube, and she has to actively react on the audiovisual cues, the cognitive stimuli, which are provided by the game, and then has to transfer them in several movements to navigate the game successfully. So it's both a body and a brain training at the same time. And we do use it actually in different settings. So here are only some. We can use it in fitness studios, for example, but we also use it in the area of rehabilitation, like you see on the right-hand side. Another application is the room concepts, where you can just, in this case, imagine to step in a mini gym where you have like 4 cubes, which are then used as the only and solely training tool in this room. And of course, it's also very important to think about how can we also attract people who are not willing to come to any kind of gym and rather would stay at home, or like we all do, especially through the last couple of months where we had to stay at home. How can we even bring those fitness games to their homes? So we are also working on extending the screen-based version with on-bodied game elements, for instance, which again is related to a research project, which we're currently performing. And what we also found very interesting is the huge trend of eSports. So it is actually, or it actually arrived in the middle of our society. And I think it's very important, if those trends are there, to take them up and find certain ways how you could use them to, in this case, really enhance habits when it comes to physical activity and healthy lifestyle again. So we decided to take the cube and founded in 2020 the world's first physical and inclusive esports league. And again, I'd like to show you quickly how it looks like.
It's time to unite sports and gaming. Time for new legends to write their story. Together, we'll take physical esports to the next level. The fusion of unique skills will make the team succeed. Everybody can be the next champion. This is your time. Join the ExerCube League.
So yeah, in this way, we take it one step further and really try to bridge the gap between analog and digital sports, and also the gap between people who are more motivated when it comes to playing games, and on the other hand, people who are or might be more motivated when it comes to performing any kind of sports. And by bringing them together, we really hope that new kinds of mixed reality sports will establish as one new form how we actually perform sports. So with this all being said, it's very important also to mention that still we strongly believe in the power of doing a lot of research, in that sense that we do have an international research partner network, which you see here. And we are continuously performing research studies to really challenge the different stages of the product development and to really figure out, is it what we meant it to be, and does it really provide us, in this case, a very effective training approach when we compare it, for instance, with a traditional functional high-intensity interval training. So we always try to learn from those kinds of studies and then iterate and bring all the findings back to the actual design process. And what we also learned is that it's very interesting if you are coming from research, you can take your methodology, like in this case, a research through design approach, and through different methodologies be open in your business concept as well. And therefore you can really define and identify certain gaps your product might still have, and always working together with your target group is also something which we strongly believe in. So to sum up, I think that a physically active and healthy lifestyle should be fun and accessible for everybody, no matter how young or old you are, no matter about your physicality, it should be fun and accessible for everybody. And I strongly believe that Exergames in this case can have a strong contribution to health and also to social well-being, not only because they are very immersive and flowy, but also because they can actually help us include different target audiences in one gaming scenario. They can help empower us and provide us new superhero skills. Social play is also something which, especially in the context of movement-based games, is a very valuable contribution. We can provide several supports for trainers and therapists when it comes to really planning or organizing therapy or training sessions. And of course, we know from research that Exergames, or the simultaneously coupled cognitive and physical training, also provides us certain training benefits. And last but not least, I think the most valuable point is, again, and this is not only something which we find in Exergames, but in games for general, it's all about emotions and bringing people together in a playful manner. And with that, I'd like to close and thank you for your attention.
Okay, so I'm up. I will share my presentation now as well. Okay, so all right, so hi everyone. And I want to first off thank you so much for tuning in and joining the event today. It's a shame we can't do this in person due to the pandemic, but I'm really thankful to have been invited to speak, and I'm delighted to meet everyone and listen to everyone else's talks as well. So I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Lauren Guardia, and I work as a localization specialist at NCSoft here in Pangyo, which is just south of Seoul in South Korea. I've been with NC for almost 2 years now, out of my total 3 years in Korea. So before I begin my career here in the Korean gaming industry, I was living and working in Winterthur, Switzerland, just outside of Zurich. And I was also doing gaming related localization there. I want to start off by introducing a little bit about my company, NCSoft, and its mission and how it relates to the topic of this event. But before I do that, I have to mention the standard corporate disclaimer when it comes to my talk, that everything contained within is my own opinion and does not necessarily reflect the opinion of my company. Additionally, I won't be sharing any information that's not publicly available due to our data protection policy. So yeah, now that I've got that serious and kind of scary part out of the way, I can move on to the more interesting and fun part, which is games in the gaming industry. So my company, NCSoft, is of course a game developer and publisher, and one of the largest and longest standing game companies in Korea. It was founded in 1997 by Kim Taek-jin, who to this day is still the CEO. And some of NC's most loved and most well-known IPs are massively multiplayer online RPGs, MMORPGs, namely the Lineage and Blade and Soul series. And especially in the West, the Guild Wars series is probably the most known and most popular. So NC recently devised a new company mission, actually, which I helped to revise into English. The mission is Push Play, with push standing for the drive to keep pushing the boundaries and never resting on past successes, and play standing for the endless creativity and limitless possibilities that go into creating the game worlds that people can play in. So my company's games and other Korean games have had a significant presence and have generated a significant fan base and revenue outside of Korea for several years long-standing. But more recently, there has been an even stronger push for Korean game companies to expand their business globally, particularly into the West. I think it goes without saying that being a foreign employee in a Korean game company, especially one the size of NCSoft, gives you a perspective that I think up until recently, very few non-Koreans have had the opportunity to really delve into and gain an understanding of. So I'm thankful that I've had the chance to experience that at NC and I learn something new and valuable every day thanks to my coworkers and my mentors there. So even if you're not familiar with Korea and its culture itself, you're probably aware that Korea is having a big moment now globally. My family and friends abroad tell me they can barely turn on the TV without BTS popping up on the screen these days. Korean entertainment and pop culture is spreading like wildfire. And it seems like now is the perfect time to appeal to global consumers. So Korean-made content is getting a boost due to, Korean-made content is getting a boost due to the Korean wave, and the games are wildly successful domestically and in other parts of Asia, so they obviously have appeal. Korean game companies have also been scrambling to beef up their localization teams, and localization quality is at an all-time high in the industry. So getting people abroad to play our games should be easy, right? Actually, when you talk about Korean games and the Korean gaming industry, an important thing to consider is that there are some major differences in how games are developed and marketed here that directly tie into cultural and societal differences. So when preparing this presentation, I tried to think about a lesser known aspect of how culture and society affects how games are developed in this country and how it can affect their appeal abroad. So that brings me to the next point, which is one of the most significant differences that Korean game companies have had to tackle when prepping their games for release in a global market. The unwillingness of many global players, Western players in particular, to accept what we call a free-to-play monetization structure. I think most people listening to this talk are probably already familiar with how free-to-play business models work within games, but for those who may not be, I'll just briefly explain. Free-to-play games, also known as pay-to-win by both critics and players of the said games, are games that are downloadable for free, and typically much or most of the content contained within is accessible for free as well. Where the business model comes in is that free-to-play games contain what we call microtransactions, which are in-game purchases where players can use real money to buy extra downloadable content or special items or certain buffs that usually give their in-game character an advantage over other characters. Now, the reason why this monetization structure is almost universally employed and accepted here in Korea and in certain other Asian countries, and so strongly opposed in Western countries, has surprisingly actually not been that thoroughly researched. But most people with an understanding of the industry will agree that the reason is far from simple. It's actually pretty multifaceted. It contains an amalgamation of societal and cultural factors, a few of the most significant being players being more historically used to paying fees to play games due to the enduring popularity of fee-based PC cafes and arcades, the demanding work culture, which encourages players to invest money into games rather than their precious free time, a general attitude toward gaming, which sees it more as a serious hobby to be mastered as opposed to a pastime just to be enjoyed. And finally, a more competitive societal mentality, which puts success on a high pedestal, where results are weighed more favorably over the process used to achieve said results. So these are just hypotheses because, like I said, this is not a topic that's been that thoroughly researched. It's mostly been looked into by people within the industry itself. But I would personally say that, yeah, these are definitely some significant contributing factors which are culturally tied. So the question remains, how do Korean game companies adapt these games that are developed from the ground up to fit this Asia-centric monetization scheme, which is widely perceived as unfair by overseas audiences? So how should they approach it? I don't think that anyone has really come up with a surefire answer to that question yet. Different companies are trying different things and have attempted different things, some of which include rebalancing or removing the in-game purchase system, developing a different version of the game from the ground up for different regions, including purchases which do not offer players an advantage, but are desirable for other reasons, such as cosmetic items like costumes or other exclusive content. So as you can tell from that list, from a global perspective, these cultural differences absolutely have an influence on games already during the conceptualization and development stage. One thing we can see, regardless of the approach each company takes in order to adapt its games to a Western market, is that recently many Korean companies are rapidly expanding their staff to include more people with expertise in globalization, localization, and with international experience and related skills. At the same time, also recently, we have been dealing with this worldwide pandemic of COVID-19, unfortunately still ongoing, which over the past year has had its own influence on this entire globalization process. No one could have predicted this. It's forced many game companies, not just Korean ones, but all over the world, many different countries, to change or delay their plans over the past year and to react to changes in the market that have come about as a result of the pandemic. While many companies were aiming to adjust their release strategies for the year 2020, once the pandemic hit, we actually saw a worldwide increase in earnings for all games. So companies across the globe saw a boost in earnings throughout the year, despite the fact that economies faltered under the weight of lost wages and lower spending. But the reason is pretty obvious. Due to the widespread lockdowns, many people were unable to work or study, and indeed were sometimes even stuck in their houses completely, suddenly finding themselves with an abundance of free time. The World Health Organization even joined forces with the gaming industry to launch the Play a Part Together promotional campaign to combat social distancing and loneliness. The game industry saw its customers interacting with games in a way that we didn't really expect, such as hosting traditionally offline social events inside games like weddings and parties. So, in a strange twist, the pandemic actually pulled a fast one on us. It's shown us all that even these reluctant demographics will change their spending habits while also finding new and innovative ways to use games to combat social distancing. COVID-19 has accelerated the gaming industry, and that trend is expected to continue even once the pandemic is over. The question is, even if the industry has grown, will players' pandemic-based trends really continue after the pandemic subsides? And if so, for how long? Even if it takes a while, will gaming and spending habits return to normal? Will people become more used to this free-to-play business model and therefore more accepting of it? Will its inherently addictive quality keep people hooked even after COVID is on its way out? This is something I don't think is easy to answer at this stage, especially as we still don't know exactly when the pandemic will end. However, I have faith in the Korean gaming industry and the countless talented and intelligent people within it to be able to roll with the punches and develop solid strategies for the success of their games abroad. I'm excited to see how the trends will change post-pandemic, and I'm excited to be at the forefront of the expansion and globalization of Korean games as a whole. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you so much for listening to my talk.
Thank you all for these really cool presentations. Thank you, Lauren and Alisa especially. And now we dive into the panel discussion. And just for everybody who is listening and participating, please, instead of raising your hand, just add your question to the chat column, and we'll pick it up from the chat column there. And so we already have first questions that came in the meantime. And both of them are actually related to the second poll question with regards to the achievements being part of the CV or not. And one, it's rather a comment than a question, is what I find it really interesting, especially also after Lauren's input, is one participant said, I think the second poll results come because of individualism in, so to speak, saying, I respect whatever games you play, so we don't really need to know the preference of their games. And I find this a very interesting aspect as well. Would anybody like to comment on this input, on this point of view, or should we move on to the other specific question? So there is general silence, and I take this as an agreement. And so there is a specific question addressed to you, Bob. And what kind of gaming information would you like to see in CVs?
Well, I think when we're hiring at Game Technology Center, I mean, like Lauren said, we look for people who have an interest in games. So if it's not written in the CV, we certainly ask, what's your favorite game? What do you like about it? I think maybe one aspect is often in industry, also in our at ETH, often you have a role as a software engineer or an artist or game designer, and in fact, many people have a variety of skills. And although you may be hired as a software engineer, for example, perhaps you have fantastic ideas for game design or for the creative concept of games or something. So I think it's always good to look, through what people play, look for this variety of skills and give people a chance to kind of branch out beyond their like specific individual role in the company.
So meaning as in not only your educational background, what you did in the sense of which schools you attended, which diplomas you achieved.
Yes, but also reflecting kind of the broader character and your broader skills, which may not be exactly part of the job you're applying for, but still contribute greatly in many ways.
Annalisa, would you like to add something because you are nodding?
Yeah, maybe. So I was thinking about some literature I know regarding the cognitive skills of gamers, and of course, processing information very quickly, reacting quickly, being able to process many different tasks at the same time. All those things are also very much related to playing games. And we know that if you play a lot, you might have the potential to be better in those skills. And of course, this is also something which might be very interesting when it comes to your CV, even though I'm not sure how you would maybe describe it in your CV. But yeah.
Jing?
Yes, I can add one more point. It's a social aspect. It's a certain kind of players really like to play together, and other kind of players really like to isolate it or as a individual player. So in the social player, they have experience about the team member. As a team members, they can achieve the leadership or certain kind of collaboration skill with other players. So we can have a chance to the including is what kind of a role in your gaming community or what kind of task will be made in your competition or collaboration style will be made to connect is we work together or is the work is individual will be proper for each person. So that will be another aspect of what we can go based on the playing experience to connect with the work style. I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the collaboration and the team aspects are vastly underestimated by many people. So yeah, absolutely correct. So the questions keep pouring in, and there is one specific question for you, Lauren. And the participant says, Zazo, I don't know whether it's pronounced correctly. In my experience, the problem that people have with play to win or pay to win free-to-play games is that you can always win by spending more money, which leads to some people spending thousands of dollars on a game that makes it impossible for anyone else to compete. This can be compared to people who like running, being told that they can only race on F1 tracks together with some runners that paid 10,000K to use a race car. What's your take on that position?
Yeah, first off, thank you for your excellent points. And I definitely, yeah, I know this perspective and I agree as well. And it's one of the major downsides to that type of monetization scheme is that many people will interpret it as unfair. And I tend to look at it sort of like, when you have people who will spend that much money, and most of them are super wealthy, of course, you have people who sometimes go into debt because this type of monetization scheme is also addictive, and that's one of the downsides to it. But it's like, for example, these people who spend so much money in these games, we have a term for them called whales. And actually, the whales are a very small percentage of the player base. Most of the people who play the game are, you know, just typical people, middle class, normal job, just like everybody else. And then, yeah, of course, you sometimes have these whales. They spend a lot of money. They upgrade their character. They're, you know, top of the rankings and everything. And then another thing you have in a lot of MMORPGs especially is the PvP element. So that can be frustrating for players because you literally fight each other, player versus player. And then if someone, you can tell they have the best equipment, they have the best character, so obviously they've dropped a lot of money on that, and you don't have the money, you can't afford to reach the same level. Yeah, that can be frustrating. I think it's kind of a double-edged sword because I think still with a lot of freemium, free-to-play games, you can get a lot out of it, even if you don't spend money. But at the same time, there are people who are going to feel pressured to spend money in the game as well. So that's definitely a negative aspect, yeah. And it's perceived as more unfair by certain demographics than others, like I said in my presentation. Like, I think that it's more accepted in a lot of Asian countries, but in the West, people are extremely opposed to it. And they think, oh, this is very unfair. I don't like that someone can just spend more money than me and be better. It should be about skill. It should be about hard work. It should be about the time you put into it. So that's something really interesting in that we're still trying to figure out what's the best balance. You know, I don't think really anyone has an answer for that yet.
I just was wondering, do you maybe also, Jung-Jim, do you have any idea where these cultural differences come from? Because being a Westerner, I would say basically nobody has fun spending lots of money for something that should be actually free without to play.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it's a very tricky one. It's in a Korean society, is after the Korean War, there is no basis for the survivor. So many people are eagerly to achieving their money and how can they live the life in the very is a tricky problem. So the many Korean society eager to achieve the success based on the gathering money will be a core value to achieve is the last 50 years. However, it's a more and more recent generation have a different understanding about how can we manage our life more fruitful way or valued way. So a little bit change in the generation by generation. So I have some insight from the Lawrence presentation. Is the Westerner or the European culture are value the time and contrasted in our Korean societies value the money. So that will be a good point of comparison. How can we the life value as a criteria to what kind of happiness or well-being will be made? So in that case, I cannot answer exactly what is the good or a bad, because there will be we needed to more deeply understand about the differential country context and the history will be made. So what kind of exact valuing experience will be connected in the playing experience. So it will be needed to more deep understanding will be needed. And how can we solve this kind of social problem or a certain kind of social phenomena, so we can have a deep understanding based on the social structure. So in the next step, we will have a more clear understanding about that, I think so.
Okay, so there's plenty of work to do there, it seems, yeah. Okay, so let me just jump away from the free-to-play discussion and localization points to games and well-being. And Annalisa, there's a question that was addressed to you directly to kind of more explain what are the health benefits of the cube exercise in contrast to actually working out at the gym, for example, in terms of physical, mental health.
Yeah, thank you for this very cool question. So maybe the first challenge is really to bring an exergame on the same level like an actual workout. So I would say that was the main challenge in the beginning and something which was very hard to find. And through iterating and a research-based design process, we were then able to really, for instance, further develop the intensity of the training. That was one thing on the physiological level. So we compared it to a traditional HIIT training, it really seems, if you have a look to the heart rate parameters, for instance, or further physical parameters, it really is on par with the traditional training. But, and now that's a very important point, we very often experience, if it comes especially to people who are not already into sports, the accessibility and the first step to really be willing to be more physically active, that's the hard one, also mentally. So if you then provide such people an environment which allows you to really get immersed and not only focus on your body like you would do in a traditional gym setting, for instance, where you're always very aware of the pain of your muscles and the sweat, and you really allow people to dive into another world and really make them forget about all those factors. That helps a lot for the onboarding phase. But also, if you think about athletes, and we did some very interesting studies with very fit athletes coming from volleyball, from hockey, from soccer, and so on. Even for them, it's a very beneficial kind of sports. And this is mainly due to the fact that we really have a simultaneously coupled cognitive and physiological training at the same time. So if you're just, for example, sitting on a leg press and you would train your legs, for instance, this won't necessarily train your brain at the same time. But if you combine it with audiovisual cues and stimuli, which you need to process first in order to really be able to react, then we do find several effects, especially on the level of cognitive flexibility, of dual tasking, and also when it comes to your attentional span. So this is very interesting, I would say, also from the physiological kind of perspective. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Annalisa. So in other words, tricking people, it's like a bit tricking people into doing more exercise by kind of showing the video game magic to them.
I would say for some people that might be the way, but also for those people who are already into sports, it's kind of a very nice additional experience or a different experience, because you're not really used to experiencing those very externally focused experiences in your traditional sports. So yeah.
But would you say, do they by definition work out harder if they do the ExerCube exercises versus the HIIT? Because I did this at the very early stage. Things were a bit iffy at then. This was really at the very, very beginning. I will do it again, and I'll probably suffer. But yeah, so yeah, just from your experience, people tend to work out harder in the ExerCube or not?
Yes, definitely yes. Or they are more willing or more open towards, because they really forget about their, in German you would say, innere Schweinehund. What's that in English? your internal voice, which always says, okay, it's enough, you can stop, you did a lot, so it's fine. You can really trick that one. And by immersing and getting motivated by the game mechanics and the gameplay itself, of course, you are willing to get one step further. And especially if you're getting into this flow experience, people really tend to forget about time, space, everything. And if you then get all the rewards and the badges, the points, this very much motivates people to, yeah, like I said, go one step further than they would maybe do in the real life.
Yeah. We had already with AR a say habit changing experience with Pokemon Go, where kids went out to hunt pocket monsters, even if it was raining outside. And so with AR, just to kind of wrap up the panel in this moment, with AR, where do you think is the biggest potential of this technology? Is it kind of in habit changing, or is it in giving you a different, say, learning experience, or a little all of this?
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for bringing it up. I would first say, just building on what Annalisa just mentioned, I think the also kind of topic and the point I was trying to make about games and education, is very similar to games and exercise. It's really, using this power of fun to motivate us, bring you for learning. If you can also enter that state of flow, it's very, very powerful. For Pokemon Go, I mean, this was fantastic because it achieved introducing augmented reality to the world. So now everyone knows about augmented reality because it was on the news and such a big thing. I would say the game itself kind of scratched the surface. What I really see as the potential, I mean, augmented reality at its core is about embedding contextualized information in the world around us. And we saw with Pokemon Go, this was a game experience. A creature was placed on the sidewalk, could go collect him. I think gaming is just the very first step, and augmented reality will be a revolution. Gaming will be part of it, but it's gonna touch everything, because just this idea of transforming all the space around us into a location for this information, I think is extremely powerful. I don't think, perhaps the most powerful won't be from a gaming company or from any company. It's going to be from us, because every individual will also be able to add information into the world, and everyone else will be able to access it. So I think that's where the real changes will come.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Unfortunately, our time is already over, and I'm sure we could have discussed many more questions. Thank you all for contributing to the whole concert, so to speak, and your presentations, and of course the talk. So I'm out, and we'll hope to see you sometime soon.
Yes, and thank you. On behalf of the STO team, I'd like to thank Mark and all the speakers for this very interesting discussion and for the engagement during the whole preparation time. Also thanking the audience for their active participation. I now invite everyone to follow our LinkedIn page, always updated with our initiatives, the latest initiatives to connect the dots between Switzerland and South Korea. Our next appointment with the SciTech concert will be on June 1st in the framework of the Swiss Korean Innovation Week with an event named Shades of Green, a critical approach to the green transition. More information can be found on our website and also on our LinkedIn page. And now I wish everyone a very nice rest of the day, and I wish to meet you all again on June 1st. Bye-bye, and thank you, everyone.